Before glowing exit signs, before sprinkler systems, before fire alarms, panic bars, and doors that opened outward, going to the theater could be dangerous. Not because of the actors, not because of the play, but because the theater itself could become the danger. For most of American history, theaters were magical places. They were full of music, painted scenery, applause, crowded balconies, gas lamps, chandeliers, velvet curtains, and people dressed for a night out. But they were also full of things that could burn: wood, canvas, rope, painted backdrops, open flames, and sometimes hundreds of people seated inside buildings that were beautiful, but not safe. Tonight, on Stick Theatre History, we're looking at 4 deadly American theatre fires. Not just what happened, but what these theatres were before tragedy found them, what shows were playing, who was inside, and how these disasters helped change the way theatres are built, inspected, and escaped from today. Theatre history is usually remembered through great performances, opening nights, famous actors, standing ovations, curtain calls. But there is another side of theater history, a darker side, a side written in smoke, panic, blocked exits, and lessons learned too late. For this episode, we're moving across nearly a century of American theater disasters, from Richmond, Virginia, to Brooklyn, New York, to Chicago, Illinois, to Boyertown, Pennsylvania. Each fire happened in a different kind of theater: a city theater, a grand Brooklyn playhouse, a brand new Chicago palace advertised as fireproof, and a small-town opera house used for community events. But they all revealed the same terrifying truth. A theater is not just a stage, it is a crowded room. And when something goes wrong, every doorway, every staircase, every curtain, every lamp, and every second matters. Richmond Theatre Fire, 1811. Our first stop is Richmond, Virginia. The date is December 26, 1811. The Richmond Theatre stood at Broad and 12th Streets, in a city where theatre was becoming part of public life. It was not just a place for entertainment, it was a place where class, politics, fashion, and ambition all gathered under one roof. That night, the theatre was packed. The Virginia General Assembly was in session. Families were in the audience. Lawmakers were there, children were there, and so was Virginia Governor George William Smith. The company performing that season was the Placide and Green Company, a traveling group of actors from South Carolina. They had already been through sorrow. One of their performers, Eliza Poe, had recently died in Richmond. She was the mother of Edgar Allan Poe, so even before the fire, this theatre already had a strange connection to American literary history. The evening's entertainment was a benefit performance for Alexander Placide and his daughter. The program included a play called The Father, or Family Feuds, followed by a pantomime called Raymond and Agnes, or The Bleeding Nun. That title sounds like something from a ghost story. But the real horror was not in the play. It was above the stage. At the time, theatres were it by candles, oil lamps, and chandeliers. Beautiful, yes. Safe, no. During the evening, after part of the performance, a stage chandelier or lamp was raised while it was still burning. It became tangled with the scenery above the stage. Then the flame touched the hanging backdrops. At first, some people may not have understood the danger. In a theatre, smoke and movement can look like part of the show. A little commotion backstage, a strange light, a flicker behind the curtain. Is it theatre, or is it disaster? Soon everyone knew. The scenery caught fire. Flames spread quickly, smoke filled the building, and hundreds of people rushed toward the exits. More than 70 people died in the Richmond Theatre fire, including the governor of Virginia. Historical sources commonly give the death toll as around 72. The city was devastated. The theatre was not rebuilt as a theatre. Instead, the site became a place of mourning. A church, Monumental Church, was later built there as a memorial to the people who died. The Richmond Theatre fire taught an early American lesson. The same lights that made a stage magical could turn it deadly. Brooklyn Theatre Fire, 1876. Now we move forward 65 years, Brooklyn, New York, December 5th, 1876. The Brooklyn Theatre was one of the city's major theaters. It stood near City Hall, and for Brooklyn audiences, it was a place of culture, spectacle, and fashionable entertainment. By the 1870s, theaters had grown larger and more elaborate. There were gaslights, painted flats, heavy curtains, ropes, balconies, galleries, and entire backstage worlds hidden behind the performance. That night, the show was The Two Orphans, a popular melodrama about danger, separation, suffering, and rescue. The star was Kate Claxton, a well-known actress of the period. The audience had come to watch fictional danger, but by the final act, real danger was forming backstage. A fire broke out near the scenery. Some performers tried to continue, some tried to calm the audience. There are accounts that actors hoped to avoid a stampede by keeping the performance going for just a little longer. But fire backstage moves quickly. Painted scenery is often light, dry, and vertical. Once flame catches, it can climb. And again, the greatest danger was not only the fire, it was the building. Many of the victims were in the upper gallery, where cheaper seats were located. Smoke and heat rose. The stairs became crowded. The escape routes were overwhelmed. The Brooklyn Theatre fire killed at least 278 people, with some accounts giving higher numbers. Afterward, investigators looked closely at the theater's management and safety preparation. The theater was managed by Sheridan Shook and A.M. Palmer. A coroner's jury found them guilty of culpable neglect of safety measures and recommended criminal charges, though they ultimately avoided prosecution. That phrase matters, culpable neglect, because fire disasters are rarely caused by one single spark. They are caused by systems: a hose that does not work, a stage crew not trained for fire, a crowded gallery, a staircase too narrow, a door too hard to reach, a theater that assumes nothing will go wrong. The Brooklyn Theater fire showed that every seat in the house needed a safe way out. Not just the expensive seats, not just the orchestra, not just the people closest to the doors. Every seat. Because in a fire, every audience member becomes equal. Iroquois Theater Fire, 1903. Now we come to the deadliest theater fire in United States history. Chicago, Illinois, December 30th, 1903. The Iroquois Theater had opened only weeks earlier on West Randolph Street. It was new, it was luxurious, it was modern, and it was advertised as absolutely fireproof. That phrase is one of the most haunting details in American theater history, because people did not walk into the Iroquois thinking it was dangerous. They walked in believing it was one of the safest theaters in America. The theater was grand and beautifully designed. It had elegant finishes, a large auditorium, a major production, and a holiday matinee crowd. The show that afternoon was Mr. Bluebeard, a musical extravaganza. The audience included many women and children. It was the kind of day that should have ended with applause. Instead, it became a national tragedy. During the performance, an arc light reportedly sparked and ignited nearby muslin scenery. The fire began during a number connected to a moonlight effect. The illusion on stage became a real flame. Theatre has always depended on illusion: a painted moon, a false wall, a paper palace, a world built out of cloth, wood, paint, and light. But those materials can burn, and at the Iroquois, they did. Stagehands tried to lower the safety curtain. A safety curtain was supposed to separate the stage from the audience and buy time. But the curtain did not work the way it needed to. It jammed partway down. Then the exits became the next disaster. Some exits were locked, some were hidden, some were hard to open. Some led to confusing routes, and the crowd had very little time to understand where to go. The Iroquois Theater Fire killed 602 people and injured hundreds more, making it the deadliest theater fire in American history. For this video, we are not going to dramatize the most graphic details. What matters here is what the disaster revealed. A theater can be beautiful and unsafe. A building can be new and dangerous. A safety feature can exist but fail. And the word fireproof does not save anyone. After the Iroquois fire, theaters across the country faced new scrutiny. Cities inspected theaters. Some buildings were closed until safety changes were made. Reforms followed around exit doors, fire curtains, aisle conditions, public assembly safety, and emergency escape. But the legal aftermath was frustrating. Although many people were blamed, theater owners, managers, architects, city officials, inspectors, no one was ultimately held criminally responsible for the deaths. That may be one of the hardest parts of these stories. The public gets the lesson. The law changes. Buildings change. But the people who died do not come back. The Iroquois Theater Fire became a turning point because it showed America that theater safety could not be based on advertising, trust, or appearance. It had to be built into the building. Rhodes Opera House Fire, 1908. Just 5 years later, another deadly theater fire struck. But this time, not in a major city, not in a famous theater district, not in a glamorous new building. This was Boyertown, Pennsylvania, January 13th, 1908. The Rhodes Opera House was not really an opera house in the grand sense. It was a public hall inside a commercial building, a place for community gatherings, lectures, meetings, school events, local entertainment, the kind of room a town depends on. That night, a church-sponsored performance was taking place, connected to St. John's Lutheran Church. Families, neighbors, performers, and children gathered in the room. It was not supposed to be a dangerous night. It was a local event, a community event, the kind of evening where everyone knows someone on stage. Then, something went wrong. Historical accounts describe a kerosene lamp being knocked over, igniting the stage area. The fire spread, the crowd panicked, and once again, the disaster was not only about flame, it was about escape. The Rhodes Opera House fire killed around 170 to 171 people. This fire is important because it reminds us that theater danger was not only a big city problem. It could happen in a small town, in a community hall, during a church performance, with neighbors sitting shoulder to shoulder. After the Boyertown fire, Pennsylvania moved towards stronger fire safety laws for theaters and public halls. The tragedy helped push rules around exits, lighting, projection booths, and fire safety in public assembly spaces. The Rhodes Opera House fire made one thing painfully clear. A performance space does not have to be famous to be dangerous. It only has to be crowded. So what changed because of these fires? Not all at once, not perfectly, and not always fast enough. But over time, these disasters helped push America towards safer public assembly spaces, clearer exit signs, doors that opened outward, panic hardware, better fire curtains, less tolerance for locked or blocked exits, safer lighting, more inspections, capacity limits, clearer aisles. and a growing understanding that crowd safety had to be designed before disaster struck. Theaters are still magical places. The lights go down, the audience gets quiet, the curtain rises, and for a few hours, everyone agrees to believe in the same illusion. But behind that illusion is something very real. Architecture, fire codes, training, exits, inspections, and lessons learned the hard way. The next time you sit in a theater and see an exit sign glowing in the dark, remember, that little sign is not just a sign, it is history, it is memory, it is a warning, and in many ways, it is the reason the show can go on. This has been Stick Theater History, where tiny drawings tell big theater stories. If you like strange, dark, forgotten, or haunted moments from theater history, subscribe for more stories from behind the curtain. This episode was part 1 of Terror at the Theater. Next time, we follow the ghost light. Because some theaters say, the show never really ends.